Hi everyone, I hope all of you are doing really well and we meet after 5 months. It was lovely listening to all of the students who sat for the May exam regarding their experience and I wish them all the very best for their result. And now, cut to October. This video is going to be about the October 2026 exam. We will be discussing important topics. We will also be discussing how you can study till October to optimize your study plan. And so let's just get started. And before I dive into the priority topics for October, let's just discuss about the May exam a little. And give me just 2 minutes. You will understand why am I even bringing May exam in a video which is actually about the October attempt. Okay. So in May 2026, as per the feedback I received from the students, since I don't have the official paper yet, the true and false section. Okay, so little brief how your exam is structured. It has two sections, section A and it has section B. Section A is of 40 marks and has true and false. Section B is of 60 marks and has one 30 marker on micro and another 30 marker on macro. And from this year, instead of 8 true and false, we have 5 questions of 8 marks each. Because the university requires you to now write in detail since the true and false are also uh, being handwritten. So, coming back to what happened in May exam as per students' feedback, the true and false structure section was restructured entirely, not in the sense that the questions were not of true and false, they were indeed from true and false, but in structured in the sense that the questions required deep knowledge. They were not pretty straightforward. It required deep knowledge. The true and false concepts, some only that person could crack who had done one chapter in very detail, and there were no repetitions from past years. So that is the reason I am saying structured entirely. There were no repetitions from past years. I think one or two maybe. Again, I'm saying I have to see the paper to be able to comment on it very strongly. But yes, this was the feedback I got. And then section B. So section B, the feedback was that the equations became very complicated. So let us just understand that what students told me. So usually in section B, in May attempts, you what you get is in micro, you either get a question where you have to maximize the utility, or you have to solve a market structure numerical, or what you have to do is you have to do a sometimes cost embedded with a production numerical. And for macro, you have questions from either solo model, which of course is numerical and theory both, and you have a question from ISMP. Now, this year, the micro question I heard had a demand function which was very complicated. So, demand function usually has price and quantity, but in 2026, you also had price of other goods. Similarly, for this part, the equations had more variables. So, what does this mean for our October exam? It means that this time, in practice, it is hinting towards the fact that our preparation has to go a level deeper than previous years. Only understanding the or understanding the pattern familiarity will alone be not enough. The goal should be genuine conceptual command so that even unfamiliar question doesn't feel unfamiliar, because when we have a very good hold, we are very intuitive about the concepts, we are also able to crack questions which we have never done just through the power of conceptual command. So now go ahead. Yeah. So before I go ahead, a takeaway for October: prepare in a way that you are able to solve high level of questions, and just importantly, questions you have never seen before. But how to do that? Well, here is how you can do that. The first step of any preparation of exam is you identify the priority topics. So I have done that for you using October 2023, 2024, and 2025 papers. I have mapped the blocks which have been repeatedly occurred in section B. Section A is something which is more random in nature, so I won't be covering that, but I will also tell you in the end of the video how you can approach section A. So in section B, coming to the microeconomics, which comes for 30 marks in section B, the first question of section B, block 10 has been heavily tested, which is welfare economics and role of government. A numerical which has a concept of externality where your marginal social benefit or marginal social cost concept comes up, where you should be also able to know how you can calculate competitive markets, because if a market has externality, you first need to know how a market looks like without externality, which is taught in block 6. So you see how linked blocks are. So not to just crack a question which is technically from block 10, you also need to have a hold on numericals of block 6. Another question, and by the way, block 6 independently is tested a lot in May attempts. So you see, there is a lot of interlinkage. Second, block 4. Block 4, utility maximization, it's very similar to the May attempt. You also need to know not just to how to maximize different types of utility functions with subject to budget constraints. So these are different types of utility functions, and one should know that how they are supposed to maximize these three respect to budget, and they are also supposed to know that what substitution and income effect happens in them. And this block is also super important for May, so this block seems like a golden block of microeconomics to me. Moving ahead towards macroeconomics, block 16, which is your aggregate demand and aggregate supply, you should be very clear with how short run aggregate supply and long run aggregate supply, how they are different, and how one policy can affect one curve. Hear me out. Short run and long run supply curves are not just about having a different shape. You should know the meaning behind them. For example, if I say that in an economy permanently productivity has increased, so you know something which is permanent in nature will impact your LRAS as well. And if productivity has increased, it will be a right virtue. But if I say temporarily there has been an increase in cost of production, LRAS won't budge a bit, but SRAS will. So you need to have clarity on what concepts are have the power to change short run or long run. This is what is tested in block 16 in the May October papers till date. Block 18, unemployment, numericals and data based questions. They are not very tough, but they do indeed need a lot of practice. And last one, block 15, inflation and money and banking. You should be very clear with how monetary policy works and why people hold money, and different motives of holding money is something which appears a lot. Now, I just want to clarify something. Past yearly question analysis is not about narrowing your syllabus. I am not saying that if you just do these blocks, you will get a 75 out of 80 or a 70 out of 80. Prioritizing blocks help us optimize our study plan. That is, we can understand that we need to prioritize these blocks. Since these questions have come up, and we know these questions have come up, so if we need practice questions of these, it is easier to find questions of these because we have those question papers with these topics. So why not start with these and then cover the other blocks later on, because these blocks, we do have material for them and they have showed up continuously, rather consistently. So it does not mean that other chapters can be skipped. Even a low frequency chapter can be tested. It's not like your block, let's say 7 or 8, which is about monopoly, or block 9, which is your about labor markets. It can never come. So please use this analysis as a guiding light, not as the final script which you have to do. Okay. So what is the step 2 of the preparation method? Once you know the priority box, the real work is upon how you study each block. That is a 5-step loop which you repeat for every chapter. What does it mean? So this step 2 is made for one chapter or any chapter, not first chapter, guys, any chapter. and you have to keep repeating it across chapters. Let's start. Please start from the priority chapters above. Begin with the blocks identified in this analysis booklet because they give you the highest leverage starting point. So you have the blocks. Now you take that block, and the official resources which you will gives us is the subject guide, which is there, and the BVFD, which is your essential reading. I have made a video, I think my first video on microeconomics blocks, that talks about in detail on how you can use subject guide and ER and how they are different. So a brief idea would be subject guide is like a detailed syllabus which guides us on how we should read the BVFD. Do that and make your own notes, because in the last days of exam you will need a notebook speaking to you in your own language, which should be revision ready. Now, once you are done with studying one chapter, example, you picked up block 4, all right? Let's say you picked up block 4. So, your idea should be after making notes, you should pick up the questions of block 4. Not all questions, not all PYQs. Pick up questions from that chapter, from block 4. So, for example, I've written if you have chosen block 4, you can attempt the October 2024 Section B question. And even a lot of May exams have question from this block. Attempt all the questions. Attempt all questions of block 4. You can also use the back questions of BVFD. I also have some practice questions. You can email to me. I'll be more than happy to send it across. Attempt all questions of that block. Once you are done with this attempt, now just make sure when you are attempting these questions, you are attempting them in a different notebook from the notes one, because your notebook should just have revision ready notes. If you write the questions there, do the rough work there, it will just be a mess, and in the end when you have to revise 20 blocks, it will be a mess. So I will also mention here, have a different notebook for notes and have a different notebook for questions. Of course, I mean, if it doesn't bother you, good, but I think the more structured our prep is, the easier it is to revise and retain information. So different notebook for questions. Because guys, see, it's not just about syllabus, it's also our different little ways in which we can have edge, how we can retain better, how we can think better. Okay, so in a different notebook. Now this step, I call this the golden step of the preparation. Why? Once you have attempted the questions, guys, of one block which you just studied, I've been taking the example of block 4, you have to get those questions evaluated. Because if you don't get them evaluated and you just move on, how will you know if you have done it correct? How will you make sure that the mistakes you have, you do not write them in your main exam? So you have to get them evaluated to understand where you are falling short. And if you don't know that, we cannot have a good score. So you have to get your answers checked by someone. That someone can be your teacher, a mentor, a senior. The idea is that that person should be very comfortable with how university answer writing formats are, especially in your commentaries, the way it is explained. Please don't use AI for it. AI can tell you your facts which are incorrect. It can also up to some extent can help you with answer writing. It can, but somebody who understands the answer writing format beyond the content, beyond what's right and wrong, can help you better with this, because there is a flow, there is a structure, and it is important just as much the righteousness of the content matters. Once you have these evaluations, you will have certain comments. For example, let's say you attempted a question of utility function where the utility function looks like this, and your answer is partially correct. And let's say your mistake is just only in the fact that you are not able to equate or assess the slope correctly of this. So your evaluation will say needs practice for slope, right? Or somebody's evaluation can say is not able to interpret utility function correctly. Somebody's evaluation can say, and the answer is correct, but it's not explained correctly. You put all of this feedback in your answer notebook after the questions you have attempted. So you put these evaluations, you put these evaluations in the notebook, in the answer notebook, after you are done with the chapter questions. And then you go through your evaluation, and in case needed, you also update your notes of the copy one or the notebook one, because it can occur that in while studying you may have understood a concept wrong, you have copied it wrong, you might have interpreted it partially incorrectly. So update your notes. With all of these 5 steps, you are done with one block. You have to do this for all blocks in case you want to score really great. If you are on short on time or for any other reason you can't do that, at least do the priority blocks given in this guide. Please repeat this for every chapter, and that way you will be able to cover chapters with a good strategy. Please don't just read the chapter and think you are done. Don't just read. You need to practice, you need to recall. Another mistake, guys, which people do, let me just mention it here, a common mistake. I hope it's visible. So a common mistake, by the way, I will link this PDF in the comments section, so don't worry about it, and I will link the annotated one so you have everything with you. People, or students in this case, rather think that we will solve all the questions once we are done with all the chapters. That's never a smart thing to do, because just reading one chapter does not qualify it as doing. A chapter is done when you are able to solve its questions. That only qualifies as doing a chapter. So when you say that you will be reading all the blocks and then moving to questions, you are essentially, haven't officially even done one chapter completely. So rather than not just reading all of them, please move, do block wise questions. So rather, we can write in common mistakes, leaving questions for end. Please do not do that. You will panic in the end. You don't want to panic in the end, thinking. And the panic reason is also that a student might be in the illusion that they have studied so much, so they will be doing great. But your first attempt of past years is never an easy ride. You have to go through the the process of getting things wrong, partially incorrect, and then improving. That is how everything works. The first version is never perfect. So practice is the key. Practice is the key. That is why I am emphasizing that you need to have this way of doing a block, that you need to do questions side by side. And of course, please feel free to contact me if you feel that you need further help for any step. And I will also link this PDF in the comment section. And I wish every one of you who will be sitting for the October exam a very, very all the best from my side. Thank you.